Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're going straight into a really haunting story today, one that unfolded back in February 2004.
hmm
The disappearance and the death of 14-year-old Michelle Georgina Pogmore in Bidwell, Western Sydney.
Yeah, it's a case that really sticks with you. Such a tragic event, and it just throws that sort of everyday piece of suburbia into such sharp relief, doesn't it?
It really does.
We've been looking through these excerpts from a project called Behind the Quiet Streets, and they offer a very detailed and quite poignant look at this whole heartbreaking situation.
Absolutely poignant. So our goal in this deep dive is, I suppose, to really understand the sequence of events.
Right.
To try and grasp the profound, the lasting impact on Michelle's family, her community, and also to consider why that search for justice is still so vital even now.
Exactly. We're aiming to distill the core of what happened, the context around it, drawing really closely from the information in Behind the Quiet Streets. It's not just about the what, but trying to understand the how and, like you said, the ongoing implications.
Okay, so let's set the scene then. Bidwell, February 2004. The source material, it paints a very visceral picture, doesn't it? This sweltering evening.
Oh, incredibly hot. Temperatures well over 40 degrees Celsius.
And that humidity, that thick, heavy air
Yeah.
just hanging there. You can almost picture
Yeah.
families spilling out onto their lawns, trying to catch any bit of breeze.
You really can. And the details in the source, they just immerse you. The smell of barbecues floating around, those slightly retro neon lawn lights giving everything a kind of strange glow, even the sound, the crackle of a transistor radio maybe playing somewhere nearby.
Yeah.
It builds this picture of a typical suburban evening, a backdrop of complete normalcy that was just about to be irrevocably shattered.
And it really highlights something crucial from that time, doesn't it? Before all the digital surveillance we have now.
Exactly. The reliance on human memory, on what people saw or thought they saw.
And right there, in the middle of this very ordinary night, was Michelle,
Yeah.
just 14.
Mm.
And a detail from the source that really struck me, her excitement about these brand new running shoes, pink and azure ones,
A gift from her mom, Kathy, that afternoon.
that very afternoon.
Yeah.
Still fresh out of the box. The source mentions that smell, that factory polish smell.
It's such a small human detail. Makes her feel so present, so real.
It really does. It speaks to those simple joys, that anticipation in a young life.
And the source also makes a point of highlighting her love for reading.
Yes. Always carrying a well-worn paperback.
Losing herself in stories whenever she could bus stops. Even reading with a torch under the covers, apparently.
Just a voracious reader. Paints a picture of a bright, imaginative girl.
Absolutely. A real thirst for stories, for knowledge.
So later that evening, around 7 p.m., Michelle headed to a casual street party just a few houses down.
Yeah, not a big formal thing. Just kids gathering on someone's driveway.
Sharing snacks, maybe some older teens playing music, a few parents nearby keeping an eye out.
Pretty standard stuff for a summer night.
And the source notes her laughter. Another one of those small but telling details bringing the scene to life.
Mm-hmm. And then, around 9 p.m., she started that short walk home along Carlisle Avenue.
Less than half a kilometer, right?
That's it. Very short distance. And witnesses, according to the source, remembered her being in high spirits.
Humming softly to herself, arms swinging as she walked. Just a typical teenager heading home on a warm night.
Under the flickering glow of a street lamp. It's just so normal.
And it's that last confirmed sighting that really, really stays with you.
It does.
One moment she's there, walking home, seemingly happy, carefree.
Yeah.
And then just silence.
Yeah, the source really emphasizes that sudden stop. No more information after that point. It's deeply unsettling.
Especially given how short the walk was on a street she knew well.
Exactly. The abrupt end to any trace of her just raises so many questions right from the start.
It really does. And the stark transition to the discovery of her body.
Yeah.
It just underscores how sudden and brutal the end of that ordinary evening was.
In the early hours of February 22nd, a local resident just walking their dog through a shortcut near the town center reserve in Mount Druitt.
Made that horrific discovery.
Yeah.
The scene described in the source.
Yeah.
It's just devastating to even imagine. Partially hidden by dense bushes.
And the heat. That intense heat from the weekend heat wave. The source reminds us it was heading towards 45 degrees Celsius.
Which would have just baked the landscape and accelerated decomposition, making the investigators' work incredibly challenging from the get-go.
Massively challenging. Melting clues, degrading evidence.
And those details included in the source are particularly poignant, aren't they? Her pink and azure shoes.
Lying beside her. Untouched by scavengers, which is noted.
And the detail about her back being towards the pathway.
It suggests such terrible vulnerability, as if she was completely unaware of any danger approaching from behind.
It's fascinating, in a grim way, how these tiny details, things that seem insignificant, could hold crucial clues for investigators trying to piece together those final, awful moments.
Absolutely. Every detail matters in a scene like that.
The police response, though, was fast, arriving within hours.
Cordoning off the reserve. The forensic teams meticulously searching for any trace evidence, fingerprints, fibers.
Photographing everything. It speaks to how seriously they took it immediately.
Definitely. And Detective Inspector Sarah Williams' description of the scene, she called it fragile.
Fragile. Because of the heat, the time that had passed? It really underscored the immense pressure they were under, trying to preserve any potential clues before they vanished.
Yeah, the clock was ticking against them right away.
And the initial findings, outlined in the source, they just confirmed the worst possible fears.
Sexual assault, homicide, partially undressed.
And no weapon recovered at the scene.
No. Then the source notes the public announcement on February 24th.
Right, high-ranking officials down on Carlisle Avenue, Michelle's photos everywhere.
The formation of Strike Force Ice Work. And those desperate pleas for witnesses, anyone who saw her walking, maybe a strange vehicle, any tiny scrap of information.
That initial public appeal is standard, of course, but it highlights just how crucial community help can be in those early stages.
Absolutely vital. They needed eyes and ears from that night.
But it's a pattern we often see in these tragic cases, isn't it? The initial, intense media focus, the urgent calls for help.
And then, as the source sadly points out, those headlines, those pleas, they eventually start to fade from public view.
It's a harsh reality, and it can make the ongoing search for justice even harder when that initial momentum is lost.
It really can, and this is where the focus shifts, inevitably, to the enduring, devastating impact on Michelle's family.
Yeah. The source includes a really powerful, very moving account of a host meeting Michelle's mother, Kathy Nelland, at her home in Bidwell. Even that small detail, the wilted roses in her front yard, it just speaks volumes, doesn't it? About the overwhelming grief, the way life can just stall after such a tragedy.
It really does. And Kathy's words, as shared in the source, just heartbreaking. Every sunrise felt like a fresh wound.
God, that's powerful. And that image, driving past the reserve and seeing her daughter's shoes, those pink shoes, dangling from branches in her mind.
It's absolutely visceral. Utterly haunting.
And the faded photograph of Michelle on the mantelpiece, taken just 2 days before the party, her smile still so bright. A constant, painful reminder
of the vibrant life that was just so cruelly extinguished.
The source also highlights the devastating impact on Michelle's father, John Pogmore.
Yes, his death from a heart attack in 2015, nearly 11 years later.
You just feel the immense weight of that grief. His frequent comments, apparently, about the profound injustice of it all.
It really underscores how these unsolved crimes don't just shatter one life. They ripple outwards, breaking entire families. It raises serious questions about the long-term health impact of that kind of trauma, too.
Absolutely. The source puts it so powerfully. This is the true cost of an unsolved crime. A mother's sleepless nights, a father's broken heart, 2 lives irrevocably shattered.
It's such a necessary reminder, isn't it? The far-reaching human cost goes way beyond the immediate victim.
So in an attempt to find some answers, a coroner's inquest was held.
By 2006, yeah, at Westmead Coroner's Court.
And the source details how they reviewed everything: witness statements, forensic analysis, autopsy reports, the findings from Strike Force Ice Work.
It's that formal legal process, trying to establish the circumstances when there isn't enough for a criminal trial.
But the outcome?
Yeah.
An open finding.
Frustratingly, yes. They couldn't definitively determine the exact time, place, or the precise cause of death, beyond confirming it was homicide.
Which just leaves so many crucial questions hanging in the air, adding to the family's anguish, you'd imagine.
Absolutely, no closure there. The coroner did, however, recommend a public reward for information.
Right, and in November 2006, the NSW government announced $100,000.
For information leading to the arrest and conviction of whoever was responsible.
Now, that might sound like a significant amount.
But the source points out that feeling of inadequacy, maybe, especially as nearly 2 decades have passed now without a breakthrough.
Yeah. It raises that question about how effective these rewards are over such long stretches of time. Do they still motivate people?
It's a valid question. And the source notes that while the police still offer the reward, it has, maybe understandably, faded somewhat from public awareness.
It's easy for cases without quick results to slip out of the headlines, out of the collective memory.
But, and this is crucial, the source also makes a point about how Michelle's memory has persisted, even without new developments.
That's important.
It highlights things like Facebook groups Missing Persons Australia, where people still remember her. There's a quote from a user in 2022.
Let's hear it.
She was an exceptional young girl, well known for her engagement in her community and love of life. We must never forget her name.
That really shows the power of community, doesn't it? Keeping that memory alive.
It really does. So vital that she isn't forgotten.
And the source also mentions local blogs, like Why I Love Mount Druitt, marking anniversaries of when her body was found.
Yeah, quoting a contributor, Ron, from February 2018, just reiterating that the $100,000 reward was still on offer.
Those local efforts are so important, keeping her story in the minds of people who might have lived there back then, who might remember something.
Exactly. The source also touches on some of the speculations and rumors that have circulated over the years.
Right. What kind of things?
Well, claims from witnesses about hearing sort of muffled screams from the bush late that night.
Okay.
A vague recollection someone had of a red utility vehicle, a ute, parked on a sidetrack near the reserve after midnight. No plate number, nothing concrete.
It's just a hazy memory.
And the unfortunate lack of CCTV coverage on Carlisle Avenue during those crucial hours.
It just wasn't common back then, was it?
No, not like today. So you're relying entirely on these fleeting, sometimes unreliable human recollections.
And it's so important to state, as the source rightly emphasizes, rumors aren't evidence.
Definitely not. But they can represent potential threads, can't they? Fragments of information, seemingly insignificant on their own, but maybe crucial if pieced together with something else.
Yeah. That lack of visual evidence like CCTV really underscores how much they had to rely on those anecdotal accounts.
Which brings us really to the emotional heart of this deep dive. The source encourages you listening, to really try and empathize, to imagine that unimaginable horror, your child just not coming home.
It's almost impossible to truly grasp, isn't it?
It reiterates that profound injustice done to Michelle, the enduring, ongoing pain for her mother, Kathy, and the irreplaceable loss for her father, John.
It's a moment to try. Just try to put yourself in their shoes. Those years of unanswered questions, that constant gnawing ache of loss that never truly fades.
And it's from that place of empathy, really, that the source issues a very clear, very direct call to action.
What's the first step?
Share this deep dive. Share it widely. Especially, the source stresses, with anyone you know who might have lived in Bidwell or Mount Druitt back in February 2004.
Because their memories hold potential power.
Exactly. A seemingly tiny detail someone overlooked back then could be absolutely vital to investigators now. You just never know.
Absolutely. And a really key part of this call to action. It's about the reward.
Yes. To demand an increase in that reward to $1 million.
And the source argues passionately, this isn't just about the money itself, is it?
Not at all. It's about showing the true value placed on Michelle's young life. It's about reigniting public attention and maybe, crucially, motivating anyone who does hold information to finally come forward after all this time.
Make it impossible to stay silent.
Hopefully. The source also provides that absolutely vital contact information for Crime Stoppers.
Let's repeat that clearly.
It's 1-800-333-THERES-A-ROW, or you can go to their website, crimestoppers.com.au.
And the plea is simple. If you have any information, no matter how small you think it is, how insignificant,
please reach out. Tell them. It could be the missing piece. The piece that finally brings some resolution to this incredibly tragic case.
Ultimately, the source just keeps reinforcing the fundamental importance of remembering Michelle's name and persisting in that pursuit of justice. For her and for her heartbroken family, it's about making sure her story is never, ever forgotten.
And keeping alive that possibility of finding answers, finding some measure of peace, however long it takes.
Thank you for taking this deep dive with us into the case of Michelle Georgina Pogmore. It's a difficult story, but profoundly important to remember and to share.
It really is.
We do intend to delve into other unsolved mysteries from that same wider suburban area in future deep dives. But for this particular exploration, our focus has been entirely on Michelle, on her story.
So let's end with this thought, really. Vigilance, compassion, and just a collective refusal to forget. These are powerful forces in the ongoing search for justice. Please never forget Michelle's name.